I'll speak to it. I just got media release sent out upstairs probably right now, so I'll address that.
Everybody, thanks very much for coming out. I'm Constable Steve Addison. Last name is Addison, and I'm a media relations officer with the Vancouver Police Department. We've got several things to talk to you about today. The first thing I'm going to speak to you about is a homicide investigation that's taking place regarding an incident that occurred last night in the area of Main Street and East 35th. Sergeant Roblard is going to follow me, and he's going to talk about a number of other incidents that occurred last night and provide some updates. So first I'll start with the homicide investigation. Police were called to the area of Main and East 35th Avenue around 9:45 p.m. last night for reports of a shooting that occurred in an apartment building. Police arrived on scene. They located a male in his 30s who was deceased from a gunshot wound. Police have arrested a 30-year-old Vancouver man in connection with that offense, and the investigation is ongoing. This is the city's 5th homicide of 2019. As you can imagine, it's still in the very early stages of the investigation, and we need to allow our detectives to conduct their full investigation. So I don't have a lot of information that I can provide you right now, but I can try to answer any questions that you have. We really need to speak to anyone who has information about this incident. Anybody who saw anything or heard anything or knows anything we'd like to speak to, so they can give us a call. VPD's Major Crime Section phone number is 604-717-2500. Calls can be made anonymously to Crime Stoppers as well, 1-800-222-8477. And as I said, this is still very early stages in this investigation, so there may not be a lot of details I can provide you, but I can try and answer as many questions as you have.
What's the relationship between these two people? Were they roommates? Was one of them a resident there? Can you tell us anything about that?
The exact nature of the relationship, if any, is something that's still under investigation.
Are they known to police, the two individuals?
I don't have that information.
Okay. Was one of them a resident of that apartment?
I don't know specifically who was the resident of the apartment or if any of them were.
Do you know who called it in? Like, was it a neighbor or was it a whole bunch of people?
We do have that information, but we're withholding that information for investigative reasons at this time.
So were there other people in the apartment at the time?
I don't know.
Is there surveillance video that you guys are looking at?
I don't know. Part of the investigative process, and as I explained, it's very early in the investigation, so our major crimes investigators are out there and will be out there collecting all forms of evidence from the scene, from anybody who may have witnessed anything or has information. That's certainly something that will be could factor into the investigation.
When will you release the name of the deceased?
We haven't released the name of the deceased at this point simply because we're awaiting confirmation on that person's identity. When we have confirmation on that person's identity, we'll get that out to you guys as soon as possible.
Right, because I'm guessing you'll get a lot more information potentially if you put his name out there.
Possibly, and we simply just don't have, we haven't confirmed the identity of the person yet, and once we have that, we'll get it out to you.
You mentioned this was the 5th homicide the city's seen this year. It seems like this number 5 is happening later than it has in past years. For example, last year I think the 5th homicide was in February.
Okay.
Is this an atypical year? I mean, in terms of how many murders we've seen so far, what does the VPD consider typical?
I can't necessarily speak to what's typical. It's certainly a fact that the number of homicides in 2019 are fewer than the number of homicides so far that occurred last year. I can't speak to any cause or effect for that.
So are you looking for other suspects in this then? I mean, I know you've got somebody in custody, but are there any other persons of interest that you're looking at here? At this point, we do have a male in custody. The investigation is unfolding. I don't know at this point if there are further persons of interest or anybody else that we're trying to find right now. But we do have somebody in custody, and our major crimes investigators are attempting to determine exactly what did occur last night and all of the circumstances that led up to this incident. How long are you expected to be in that condo investigating? And like, is the body still there? Like, what's kind of the status right now?
I don't know.
Do you expect charges to be laid today?
I don't have that information.
Can you speak to how the individuals ended up in that unit?
I'm sorry, I don't know if I understand.
Well, like you were saying that you're not sure if either one of the individuals lived in that building. So, can you talk about, like, whether one of them did? Were they visiting someone? Did they just enter the lobby? Like, was it an apartment? Can you give us
Certainly,
some more-
those are all questions that our investigators are trying to answer. And as you can appreciate, we're 13 hours into this, and we're trying to piece together everything that happened and determine the exact sequence of events. Those are details that will be determined throughout the course of the investigation. I just don't have those answers for you right now.
And sorry, did you say already, or were you asked about where the arrest took place?
The arrest I wasn't asked, and I didn't say I can tell you that the arrest took place a short distance away from where the homicide occurred. Any other questions?
Any struggle with that arrest, or?
Not that I'm aware of.
How long after was the arrest made?
I don't have the exact time frame, but the arrest did occur last night.
Is that the Fraser Street incident that we've heard about? There was some sort of...
Don't have any information to suggest that this homicide investigation is connected to any other incidents in the city.
No, but just the arrest. Was the arrest made on Fraser Street? You said it was close by.
I don't
Is
know
that the-
specifically where the arrest was made.
Okay.
And is the individual in custody cooperating with police?
I can't speak to, that's not something that we would generally speak about, just for investigative reasons, but what I can tell you that there is an individual who was arrested last night.
Were there any injuries to that person?
I don't know. Okay. I'm going to pass it over to Sergeant Robillard, who's going to talk about a few other matters. Thanks, everyone.
Hey, good morning, everybody. My name is Sergeant Jason Robillard, a Media Relations Officer here with the Vancouver Police Department. I'll give you an update on two incidents that also occurred last night, a bit of a busy night for us. The first one I'll speak to occurred just after 10 p.m. last night downtown. This was on Granville Street in West Georgia. This was an erratic driver. It was a man in a Toyota Camry that was driving towards some pedestrians that were waiting at a nearby bus stop at that intersection. Witnesses also observed the man driving into oncoming traffic, and we had one witness follow the suspect vehicle towards Main and Hastings, where I've also seen some video of the same vehicle that was circling around. The information was relayed back to the 911 dispatchers, who quickly and promptly relayed that information to our officers. We were able to locate the suspect vehicle, the gray Camry. This was on Main Street, just by Pryor and National. We did what's called a box and a pin, where we were able to stop that vehicle from leaving the scene by using our police vehicles in front and behind of it. A man was arrested. He was identified as Harpreet Gill, a 37-year-old man from Surrey. He's now been charged with dangerous driving. We're looking at additional charges related to impaired driving to be forwarded to Crown Counsel for their consideration at a later date. To say that all the vehicles involved in the box and pin where the officers made the arrest had little to no damage, and Gill appeared to be uninjured. He remains in custody today. Any questions?
Why is he known to police? Does he have a history?
You know, what I can tell you is our officers are looking at still a bit of what contributed to this. We do believe there was some alcohol and possibly drugs. Also, we're looking into whether or not the man's mental state played a part in this as well. So we're looking at that right now. But as we speak, he is currently in custody and is facing one charge. It's actually, the actual charge is called dangerous operation of a conveyance. So that's the actual charge.
Was he alone in the vehicle?
Yes, he was a lone occupant.
And can you speak about, just the dangers of to others in terms of, driving, I think you said from, was it Georgia, all the way to Hastings and Maine, like?
And then eventually, fortunately, our officers were able to quickly intervene. Were able to stop this vehicle by using a box and a pin technique, and they used it quite textbook example of how to use this. There was no injuries to anybody. The vehicle stopped and was unable to continue. It was done in a safe manner. So, we're very fortunate that we got there very quickly. We do credit the witnesses that were able to relay the information to us quickly and give us live updates, which were relayed to the officers, were able to quickly bring this to an end. It was obviously a very dangerous situation, not knowing why this was happening, but driving close to pedestrians and driving onto oncoming vehicles head-on, very dangerous, very erratic, and we're happy that we're able to resolve this with no injuries.
Can you tell us how close this vehicle came to pedestrians? You mentioned it was driving towards pedestrians.
I don't have that specific information, but the information I do have is that he was driving towards them, and enough for them to be quite concerned for their safety and for us to receive several 911 calls about this vehicle. I've also was able to witness some videos posted on social media which appear to be the same car around Main and Hastings, doing what other witnesses had described the vehicle doing prior, which was circles into oncoming traffic. So very dangerous behavior, and again, we're very fortunate that we were able to get there very quickly and resolve the situation.
Was the vehicle owned by the suspect?
I don't have that information.
But you don't think it was a stolen vehicle at this point?
We're not investigating a stolen vehicle, that's correct. Thank you. I'll move on to the next incident that we had, and it occurred around the same time. It was just after 10 p.m. last night, where we responded to the report of one shot heard, and this was in an apartment building near West 70th and Cartier Street in South Vancouver. Our officers quickly determined that a 40-year-old Vancouver man had allegedly shot a gun into the floor inside the apartment building. Again, we're fortunate that no one was injured during this. Our officers attempted to arrest this man, the suspect in the shooting, and he refused to cooperate with the officers and remained inside an apartment. We had numerous police resources on scene after that for this male. We had negotiators, our emergency response members, and several patrol officers talking to this man to try to get him to leave. It took about 4 hours for our negotiations, and the man eventually exited the suite. He came out on his own, and he was arrested without further incident, and he was not injured. The man, who was also wanted on 2 outstanding and unrelated arrest warrants, remains in custody now. Our officers are putting forward charges related to several or numerous firearms-related charges. So those have not yet been approved by Crown Counsel, but we anticipate that to happen shortly. And there was also 2 outstanding warrants for this man.
Can you explain if you're releasing his name, and if not, why?
Right now, the charges haven't been approved by Crown Counsel, so once it's public information, we can release his name and what the exact charges will be at the end of the day. What I can tell you is we're looking at several firearms-related charges. Sometimes the charges that we put forward, once Crown Counsel reviews it, there might be additional or lesser charges, things like that. So we don't want to comment too soon, but we do anticipate that there will be charges forwarded to Crown very, very shortly.
3 incidents like this all kind of unfolding around the same time. Does that put a strain on your resources? Like, I mean, what was it like for you guys trying to deal with 3 things like this all at once last night?
It does put a strain on us, but we're prepared. We're ready to respond. These are all priority 911 calls, priority 1 responses, as we call them. So our officers were well prepared, and we responded quite quickly. If we look at all 3 incidents, we had officers on scene very shortly after the 911 call. So our response time was quite quick. We were able to facilitate our other resources and additional resources, such as ERT and our negotiators and other patrol officers in different districts. So last night was a coordinated effort between all of our patrol officers and our additional support officers from ERT, the dog squad, IDENT. We had homicide teams out last night. So we had all hands on deck last night, but we're thankful of how things ended.
What were the warrants for?
I don't have that information right now. It's still waiting before Crown Counsel. Any other questions unrelated to last night? Yes.
Can I ask you something just separately after?
Sure.
Is that okay?
Sure, okay. Okay, thank you very much.